welcome to our Poverty Truth Network chat show. I'm Andrew, and over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking to different commissioners from around the United Kingdom to find out a little bit about what they did within their Poverty Truth Commission, understand and hear some of the wisdom of their learning from it, and then begin to think together how we as a network might engage together. Today we have the West Cheshire Poverty Truth Commission, and we have Gus, Robert, Deborah and Kay with us. Hello everyone.
Hi.
We asked you to do a little bit of preparation, which was to bring an item that you could not live without in order to help us get to know you a little bit. So Robert, do you want to explain a little about who you are, show us your item, and then give us a reason why you chose it?
Yeah, so my name's Rob. I manage a foyer where we support young people experiencing homelessness between the ages of 16 and 25. My item are my dirty running shoes. So I set myself a task at the start of the year to do 3 lots of exercise every week for the whole of 2020. I completed a 10K, started training for a half marathon, which got cancelled because of coronavirus. And now I've just signed up with some colleagues at work to run a 50-mile route from all of our foyers across the northwest over a 2-day period. And we're hoping to have people to come and join us and run different legs of our journey. So my running shoes are something that have been very important to me since the start of the year. And plus I didn't want to bring my kids on because I'd never get them off. So I've gone with the running shoes.
Brilliant. I think that was a wise choice. How about you, Kay? What have you brought?
I brought my phone because with my face on. It's the best way that I can contact my children. It's got my diary in it. It's got my pictures. It's got everything that I need in it.
Excellent.
And I'm Kay, and I'm from Ellesmere Port. And it's lovely to be in this group, and I'm a community inspirer.
Fantastic. It's good to have you here, Kay. How about you, Gus? What did you bring to show us?
I'm Gus Cairns. I live in Blacon, which is part of Chester. I brought my diary because I'm autistic and I forget things easily. And so the diary is the most important thing in my life.
And finally, Deborah, what did you bring?
Hi, my name's Deborah. I'm the chairperson of a local homeless charity called Share. It's a huge community initiative within Chester and Flintshire. I brought my book of lists. This is absolutely crucial to me. I couldn't exist without it. It has its pros and cons. So sometimes if I put too much on the list, it gives me a huge sense of failure at the end of the day. But I've got so many roles in my life that I try and achieve that I can't manage without writing lists for everything, and it is really satisfying to cross something off your list.
You were part of the second West Cheshire Poverty Truth Commission. Do you want to just tell us, I come to you, Deborah, first, where have you got up to with that, and what are some of the things that you've looked at?
I've been part of the homeless and housing subgroup of the West Cheshire Poverty Truth Commission. We've looked at various things really. We started by listening, which is what every Poverty Truth Commission should do. So we listened to our community inspirers, particularly those people who'd recently experienced homelessness and housing issues. It was hard to listen to some of the stories. So they were quite heartbreaking on occasions, and we recognised very early on that there were 2 or 3 things that as a group we found really disturbing. The first one was how destructive it is for young families to be placed into bed and breakfast accommodation. It's destructive for the children and the parents, and the long-term effects of that were really very apparent. But also the cost of that to the taxpayer was immense. Tens of thousands of pounds for families staying in bed and breakfast accommodation. And then we looked at other story and timelines of people who had experienced homelessness, and there were 2 things that became apparent. Firstly, that no one should ever ever, a family should never end up in bed and breakfast accommodation. It's a horrendous experience for everybody, and it's really destructive and really expensive. And secondly, and possibly the most important thing for us, was if we had a really robust, effective advocacy process along the whole timeline, then mostly these things were completely avoidable, and the tens of thousands of pounds worth of cost was totally avoidable. If you had a really robust specialist advocacy service for people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And when we looked at the process, several points along the way, you know, it was completely avoidable situation for someone to end up homeless. And it was literally that. It wasn't as well that the services weren't there and they weren't being provided by Cheshire West and Chester Council. All the services were there. Everything that those people needed were there, but they weren't able to access them. They didn't understand them. The bureaucracy around those processes were too difficult and challenging, even for people in a good place with their mental health and a good financial status, you know, regardless of other things going on in their lives. So the need for a really robust advocacy service was key to everything. That's what our ultimate conclusion was, and we went a long way to achieving that, and we're still working with the council to achieve that, and we're very optimistic that that's on the cards and in the process.
Robert, I think you were a part of that group as well.
Yeah.
What are some of your takeaways from just being in that part of the commission?
To tap into what Deborah was saying there about people being in bed and breakfast accommodation, at the foyer we get quite a few young people that come directly from bed and breakfast to come and live with us. And it's surprising that those people often say that they just feel forgotten about. Just because they've got a roof over their head, they're expected to be okay. And actually the isolation they experience, the lack of support that they experience, means that their confidence gets shattered during that time. So the perception that their issues are now solved just by giving them somewhere to live, you know, couldn't be further from the truth, really. We were lucky enough to have quite a large amount of people from different housing associations on our group. And I think the 4 or 5 key housing associations decided that they were going to try and have 0 evictions. And that's something that, you know, had a massive effect on people experiencing homelessness. And it allowed those housing associations to look at themselves a little bit, look at the support that they offer, and think, rather than making this person homeless, how can we support them to maintain their tenancy? So they were a couple of the key things that we spoke about.
Gus, I think you were a part of the health and mental health group.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you looked at in that particular group?
We explored provision and informed design of the care hub and Live Well sites, actually promoting Live Well, raised awareness of issues and solutions at local and national events. And I sit on the Mental Health Partnership Board, and during the time we've been on the PTC, we've taken a couple of other community inspirers onto the board, and I've been made a co-chair of the board. Started running a mental health peer support group in Northwich, worked with schools and young people looking at the support provided for mental health. We did a lot with a couple of schools in Winsford. They made a film as well, and we also were at the opening ceremony and the closing ceremony. Being involved with the PTC, Poverty Truth Commission, has been life-changing in many ways. I was diagnosed with autism at age 70, 18 months before the PTC was formed, and I was struggling with the diagnosis. The facilitators made it easy for me to join in, and if things got too much, I could leave the room until I had cleared my head. I've made some friends, though, and I brought my knowledge of health to the health and mental well-being subgroup. My voice seems to have more power behind it, and as a community inspirer, I am told I am being listened to now and have had added confidence to up my game since joining the PTC. It was harrowing and inspiring listening to the other inspirers' stories and telling my story. And the children's performance at the launch and the later film was wonderful. I hope there is a legacy programme to continue with the great work we have started. There have been many opportunities for me and the other community inspirers to present PTC and shared our life experience to influence change over the past 12 months. The good news is that organisations seem very open to the idea of working with people with lived experience, and our involvement has been welcomed.
We worked around the food bank, and the way people felt about the food bank and dignity and things, and thinking about alternative ways we could work around that, different ideas like having vouchers to go and use in the supermarket instead of going to get the food bank, where people can choose what they want rather than go to a food bank and get things that they probably don't like. We've also been working around school children as well, and what they get to eat that's not enough, and trying to sort that out, that where they can have more, and trying to sort out where they could have a breakfast club but not actually have it at breakfast, to see if it can work where they can have it at break time, because quite a lot of children aren't hungry first thing in the morning. And they say that it's actually better if they actually eat around break time, and then it gives them more in the stomach, and when it comes to lunchtime, if they can't get enough then but they still have food from that time, then it gives them more to last them for the day then, so they'll be able to work better.
And Kate, what was it like to be involved in the commission for you?
It's been great, because I've struggled. I've been to food banks several times, and the red voucher is awful. You just don't like going in with a red voucher. People look at you and you're like, they know what I'm going for. It's just the shame. That's you. It's not a shame, but you feel like it's just people looking at you. But since it's COVID now, a lot of people have been going to get this, but it's not by voucher now. It's been changed to electronically. Right. So people aren't getting that embarrassment at the moment. So I'm hoping it's staying like that, so people won't have that anymore.
One of the things that really strikes me about Poverty Truth Commissions is the creative ways in which people are able to tell their stories. And there's been lots of videos done. We're going to watch for a moment one of the videos that was from your closing event in West Cheshire.
Tracy was affected by the benefit cap and struggled to pay off the rent arrears, which resulted in eviction. She owed £5,000. Due to being made homeless, they lost all their furniture and white goods. All the children missed out on education and spent 35 weeks in temporary accommodation at a cost of over £16,000 to the council. Spending 5 weeks in a bed and breakfast over in Liverpool was the worst experience the family had ever faced.
When Tracy was sharing her story publicly, I thought, this sounds familiar. I remembered Tracy as she was in one of the dispersed properties for homeless families which For Housing manage on behalf of the council, and I felt uncomfortable and a bit defensive.
I remembered Sharon's name being on the letters from housing. I felt uncomfortable and awkward, but as part of the Poverty Truth Commission, we had to meet up for a coffee.
We talked about family, teenagers, kids, and life in general.
We spoke about everything apart from the quite significant issue between us, the homelessness issue.
When the PTC met, I heard more about Tracy's story, and I listened. I really listened. I started to think how the work we were doing as a housing provider was impacting on families. We were driven by process.
As I got to know Sharon better, I started to drop my guard and we talked more.
I understood why Tracy's guard was always up. I started to think about what she'd gone through, seeing it through her eyes, and as a mum, all you want to do is protect your children.
I know I came across to people in authority in a negative way. I came across aggressive even. The Poverty Truth Commission gave me a voice. I never thought I'd do anything like this, but I absolutely love it. I want there to be protection for people, more support to prevent homelessness, and that no family is put into bed and breakfasts.
At For Housing, our approach has changed. We want to enable successful tenancies. We have a team of people that are listening more, they're building relationships. We have a wellbeing service and we are talking to people with rent arrears as soon as we see an issue. Our goal is to do everything in our power to keep people in their homes. Through working with partners and the council, we want to encourage more housing providers to do the same.
Deborah, what are some of the things that you've learned by being on the commission that you might not have learned if you hadn't been on it?
I think coming from a large charitable organisation, I was very aware, probably naive when I came into the Poverty Truth Commission, that we were all aware at the moment that we have to, that it's a good thing for us to listen to people with lived experience, and that co-production is something we should all be engaged with. And I came along to the Poverty Truth Commission feeling that yes, we can tick that box. We do that within our organisation, and really it dawned on me very quickly that actually we don't do that. We think that we do, but we don't, because the thing I've learned mostly is that it's important to listen to people, but it's more important to empower people and support them in order to speak. It's not enough just to say we listen, because if you're in crisis or you've experienced crisis and that somebody else, wants you to come and tell your story, it's very daunting, and it's not an easy thing to do. So unless you support people and empower people to speak, then listening is never going to be enough, really.
Robert, how about you? What's your learning from being part of the commission?
The Poverty Truth Commission, I'm sure, in West Cheshire was worth it just to see how much those 15 people have grown, and the contribution that they've offered back into West Cheshire. Just following those 15 people and seeing the changes that they've made to themselves, the fact that they've got improved confidence, the fact that they're now members of, they feel like members of the community. The funding that goes towards the Poverty Truth Commission was worth it just for those 15 people. And to be able to be a part of that, and to be able to watch that, and to be able to have the opportunity to contribute towards that was something that was really eye-opening, and a really fantastic thing to be a part of.
If there was something that you would say to the other commissions, look, why don't we work on this? What might that be? I'm going to come to you first, Gus. What
Right.
do you think the other commissions should think about?
Getting near to winter, and this COVID-19 going a bit less and a bit less. There's going to be a lot of people who are needing mental health, help with their mental health, and it's people who have been isolated in their houses and bungalows for about 3 or 4 months, who might find it hard to leave their house or bungalow now. So people are going to have to watch out for what might happen with those people, and people who have been in a hospital with COVID could start getting PTSD or something like that. If they've been on ventilators and been sedated for weeks on end, it's going to be a hard time for some of these people.
Kay, how about you? Is there anything that you think that other commissions should think, oh, we could work on this a bit together?
I think as long as you're listening to each other,
Yeah,
then you'll go far.
Hmm.
And when you start listening to each other's groups, then you'll all work other things out, and things will go further and further. Things will change, and eventually things will change for the good, from the kids all the way up to the older people, and that's what we're looking for.
Robert, is there anything that you kind of think?
Without stealing Deborah's thunder too much, because I know that Deborah was a big kind of advocate for advocacy in our local area, so I know that Deborah's going to talk about that. Something that's just kind of touched me while we've been sat here is listening to the way in which Kay talks about the experience of a food bank. Food banks are something which are common across lots of localities, and I think that, you know, people will feel that is a solution, but actually there are hidden issues behind that. And if you don't ask people who are experiencing going to the food bank, if you don't ask them, you know, how are you going to get home with 3 bags of shopping when you're 75 and you've got a walking stick? All these issues that come out, how do you actually feel when you go there and you go with your red slip? Until you ask those questions, sometimes that can lead to, you know, to more issues and more things that people struggle with. So I think a common issue, that's a common theme that could be looked at, is the experience of the food.
When we got together as a Poverty Truth Commission and we started to listen to people's stories, that became very apparent to many of us very quickly that along that whole process from start to finish, had they had an advocate walk alongside them who knew what was available, who knew how to access it and knew what was out there, most of these desperately sad stories of people, and you know, resulting in crisis at point in their lives would never have happened had there been an advocate to walk alongside them, and also to look at the forms of advocacy that are out there. I think for us, we felt it was important to have a specialist homeless advocacy service that was ring-fenced for homeless services, somebody who knew how to work the system or access the system. But also, we also looked at a legal advocacy service, a more formal legal advocacy service for people who were at risk of homelessness. And that's another line that we went down as a subgroup. So I think just almost every story had an advocate to walk alongside them, to listen to what their needs were, understand what their needs were, and empower them to meet those needs. Almost every story would have been entirely different, and so I can't stress enough how important it is to look at advocacy across all of those processes.
I'd like to ask you all one last question. What piece of wisdom would you want to pass on about Poverty Truth? Deborah?
I think for me, the crux of it is that it's really important not just to listen, but to empower people and support people to speak. That's when real change happens.
It's all about change for the better, and not to be left for somebody else to do. Just go for it.
If you actively want to make change, put people who experience those challenges at the heart of that process, and involve them and listen to them, and support their voice to come out throughout that process as well.
Well, I've got a different thing. Make sure you know how to read data, because data is one of the main things that you need to take these things forward. You need to know what your actual figures are and things like that. You know, you need to know how many people are going to the food banks and things like that, you know, to push this forward. So find out where data is and read it.
I'm sure everybody watching this would want me to thank Rob, Gus, Deborah and Kay just for all the things that they've shared. If you're interested in the work of Poverty Truth Commissions nationally, you can also look at www.povertytruthnetwork.org. Thanks, West Cheshire, for this afternoon, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.